Time for deep dive number 3 on the Chicago Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As usual, quick reminder to go hit the like button, jump in the comment section down below as well, and make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Hitting that subscribe button is 100% free, won't cost you anything, and really does help me out tremendously as I'm on the climb to 2,000 subscribers. And obviously, I'm getting into Blackhawks Deep Dive 3.0 on today's show. Blackhawks Deep Dive 4.0 is quietly approaching. We're getting near the midway point of the regular season, meaning not only will I have a mid-season breakdown on the Blackhawks, I'll also be having my mid-season prospect rankings and a lot of other good Blackhawks stuff coming out here soon on the channel. So just another reason to go and hit that subscribe button. And I do got to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards. Go and start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. As I already said, time to get into Deep Dive 3.0 on the Chicago Blackhawks, as we're now 32 games through the 2024-2025 regular season. Once we hit that 41-game plateau, the midway point of the season, I'll be having Deep Dive 4.0 coming out, but excited to dive into some individual stats and analytics here for the Blackhawks through their opening 32 games. Gone a lot better here as of late since Andrew Sorensen became the interim coach. Hawks are 3-3-0 over their past 6, and I think altogether just much more entertaining style of hockey and much more possibilities, especially on the offensive side, given that there's been an influx of speed and more offensive-minded play here as of late. But what I wanted to start things out with on today's show was starting with the Blackhawks forwards. I'll get into the defensemen during segment 2, but I want to start out with the forwards here on today's episode. Got to begin with none other than number 98, Connor Bedard, who despite all the criticisms, all the critiques, the sophomore slump narrative being thrown around him, he's brushed that to the side with a real phenomenal month of December here, despite still not having a consistent line mate, not a single one next to him, and not really getting a ton of help at even strength. Bedard, still the leading scorer for the Blackhawks, really feels like he's found his groove and gotten his swagger back over the last couple of weeks, and it's been phenomenal to see. Through 32 games this season, Bedard, disappointingly, yes, only has 7 goals, but he has added 19 assists, which is first among all Blackhawks skaters, obviously first with 26 points. The biggest thing that's killing Bedard this year is the lack of not only just goal scoring, but even strength goal scoring. He only has 4 even strength goals through 32 games. Now, is some of that a fault of Connor Bedard? Yeah, I do think he needs to be better at even strength, and quite honestly just needs to be able to finish off some of these opportunities that he's getting. I mean, he could easily have 7 or 8, but at the end of the day, you're only as good as your numbers suggest, and those 4 even strength goals are 7th among all Blackhawks skaters. Now, again, I think the coaching staff needs to do a little bit of a better job of getting him legitimate, consistent help and find an actual line mate to stick with him. I think they found one in Ryan Donato. I expect Teuvo Teravainen will probably get another look up there at some point. Hey, maybe even Lukas Reichel. I'll keep my fingers crossed there. But yeah, that's the one area where Bedard has been a little bit disappointing. Only 4 even strength goals. I also think part of that, though, is him shooting 8.9%. He has 79 shots on goal, which leads Blackhawks forwards, but he's only shooting 8.9% and didn't even shoot in the double. I think he shot 10.7% last year, actually, which, again, for the type of release and the shot that Connor Bedard has, quite honestly, if we look back on this in 10 to 15 years, I think those are going to be some of the lowest shooting percentages of his entire career because he's just that talented of a goal scorer. I think that number is going to continue to climb as he's found his swagger here, as I've mentioned. Hopefully those numbers will take a little bit of a jump. Those are kind of the two criticisms that I have on Connor Bedard through 32 games, is still getting shots on goal off at a pretty good clip, 79 shots, right around 2.5, 3 shots per game. Been much more aggressive here as of late, as I've mentioned. Leads all Blackhawks forwards with 19 minutes and 33 seconds of time on ice. He's the true top line center, number one focal point of this offense, and still only 19 years old. Other gripe I have on Connor Bedard is he's only won 30% of his faceoffs this year, which is even worse than what he posted as a rookie last year. That's definitely concerning. He has gotten better on the defensive side of things, but there hasn't been any progress at the faceoff dot. Now, I do think we still need to be patient. Again, the kid's only 19 years old, but you have to wonder if Connor Bedard is going to be a long-term center here in Chicago. I know that's where they're putting him right here, right now, and it's too early, way too early to say for sure if they're going to have to bail on him at the center ice position. But that's certainly something to keep looking out for the rest of the way, and as he continues to develop these next couple of years. Bedard also has a 45.5 Corsi for percentage, right around average for this Blackhawks team. Would like to see that up a little bit more, but all in all, again, with this kid being the focal point of the offense on the road, he's having to go against the top team's defensive line and defensive pairing all night long. He's the one starred on the whiteboard heading into the game. Yeah, maybe he's not at Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby's level when they were in their second years. And yes, that is a little bit disappointing, but at the same point in time, you got to consider this Blackhawks offense as a whole, and that Bedard is still doing a lot of good things. And as I broke down about a week ago, in terms of U20 points per game, he is beating every former number one overall pick, basically, except for Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby. Moving on next, we got Teuvo Teravainen, who also has played in 32 games, back-to-back 6-point performances, actually has him as the second leading scorer on the Blackhawks, with 7 goals and 12 assists for 19 points on the season. Those 12 assists are third among all Blackhawks skaters. Teuvo only has 2 even-strength goals, though, through 32 games. That's the biggest gripe I have about him. Got to be more aggressive in general shooting the puck. Only has 55 shots on the year despite playing in all 32 games and averaging nearly 17 minutes of time on ice per game. He's got to be more assertive. He's got to be more consistent. Hopefully this nice stretch that he's had these last couple of games starts to get him going there. He does have 5 goals on the power play, so he's been a big contribution on the Blackhawks man advantage, which is still in the top half of the league, but we got to get more out of number 86, especially if he does get bumped up again with Connor Bedard at even strength. 46.4 Corsi for percentage for Teuvo Teravainen. Pretty solid among the top 5 in Blackhawks forwards. So despite kind of the lack of consistency, night in, night out, he is still generating some decent chances overall. And again, hopefully this nice stretch can kind of elevate his game even further. Third leading scorer on the Blackhawks this season is none other than Ryan Donato, who wound up with the game-winning goal last time out. Big time goal from Ryan Donato against the Washington Capitals. Now gives him team leading 11 goals along with 7 assists for 18 points through 30 games. Remember when Ryan Donato was getting scratched early on in the year? Absolute joke. He's also first on the Blackhawks with 10 even strength goals. So it's not like Donato's been a power play merchant this year. He's getting the job done at even strength. Only 1 power play goal. And how about this, Blackhawks fans? A number that really jumped out to me: Ryan Donato is second on the Blackhawks in shots on goal this year with 74, and he's still shooting 14.9%. And part of that, I think, is just what I've been explaining about Ryan Donato here on the show. There's nothing complex about his game. He shoots the puck and gets it on net at will every time he gets an opportunity. And when there's a lane for him to drive to the net, he takes it to the net. He just takes the simple and easy plays that are right out in front of him, and he's getting the results from it. So many other Blackhawks need to be taking a page out of Ryan Donato's playbook. Third on the team in points, first in goals, second on the team in shots, and still shooting 15% this year. Incredible stuff out of Ryan Donato. And oh yeah, how about his 54 hits that ranks second on the Blackhawks as well, man? For real, Ryan Donato sneakily might be the MVP of this Blackhawks team here as we're approaching the midway point of the season. And he's done all of this while averaging 14 minutes and 59 seconds of time on ice. A regular third line type of role for Ryan Donato, along with a 47.4 Corsi for percentage, among the best on the Blackhawks. He's been phenomenal. Next, we got Taylor Hall. He's played in 31 of 32 games. Of course, there was that random healthy scratching incident that I don't think helped Luke Richardson's cause. Slow start for Taylor Hall, but has found his gear as of late. 7 goals, 7 assists now for 14 points on the season. All 7 of his goals, actually, have come from the even strength variety, which is second among all Blackhawks skaters. Would like to see Hall maybe a little bit more contributal. Is that a word? Not even sure. But I would like to see him contribute more on the man advantage. No power plays so far this year, despite getting looks early on the first unit. He's played on the second unit here as of late. Would like to see that at least chip in a little bit more on the power play. Has shot 11.5% this year, which is pretty solid for Taylor Hall. He'll take anything in double digits. 61 shots on goal as well, so being pretty aggressive when he does get opportunities in the offensive zone. Averaging 15 minutes and 17 seconds of time on ice with a 48.7 Corsi for percentage. That is the best among all Blackhawks skaters. So despite that lack of consistency, I would say in the opening 20, 22 games of the year, and most of you, I'm sure, remember from my Blackhawks Deep Dive 2.0, me talking about Taylor Hall and the guy I'll talk about next year in just a second, their lack of consistency really killing this Blackhawks offense now that they've kind of found it once again. Huge contributors here as of late, and hopefully that keeps up. The next guy is Tyler Bertuzzi. Yeah, didn't get off to a real good start to his Blackhawks tenure, but he's found his niche and his role for this team. Now has 8 goals, second among all Blackhawks skaters, and 5 assists in 32 games played, 13 points. Would like to see those assist numbers be a little bit higher, but at the same point in time, he's not a play driver for this Blackhawks team, and they still are 30th in the NHL in goals per game. So the playmaking's been down for Bertuzzi, but the goal scoring has been back here recently. He's got 5 even strength goals on the year, which has been nice because if you remember, he was really only getting it done on the power play to kick off the season. So nice that he's finding ways to contribute at even strength pretty consistently here. Does have a 16.0 shooting percentage, not much of like a sniper or a perimeter shooter, but he gets a lot of good looks from in tight, his office, in the dirty areas, right out in front of the net, in the crease. That's where he's got to make his living, and that's where he's got to keep making an impact for the Blackhawks, right out in front of the net and scoring those gritty goals. 15 minutes and 39 seconds of time on ice is what Bertuzzi is averaging so far, with a 48.3 Corsi for percentage, third among all Blackhawks skaters. Probably not a surprise it's that number, considering he's played with Taylor Hall for a majority of the season. Did want to point out, though, Tyler Bertuzzi is minus 13 at even strength, which is second worst among all Blackhawks skaters. So despite having a good Corsi for percentage, defensively, when the other team does get a good look, Tyler Bertuzzi, Taylor Hall, not really known for their defense, kind of liabilities in those situations. Hence why Coach Andrew Sorensen and Luke Richardson before him used those guys in mostly offensive zone situations. Next, we got Nick Foligno, who's played in 31 of the 32 games, did not play on Sunday against the New York Islanders. Through 31 games, he's got 7 goals and 6 assists for 13 points. 5 of his 7 goals have come from the even strength variety, and he's chipped in for 2 power play goals on the second unit. 16.7 shooting percentage for Nick Foligno. Did not expect that to be the case. However, he only has 42 shots on goal this year, so just over 1 shot attempt per game. And for a guy who, I know he hasn't been in the top 6 all that consistently as of late, but for someone who started out the year in that role, would like to see him get up a little bit more in that category. Does lead the Blackhawks, though, with 87 hits on the year, so the captain leading by example out there, playing with that edge and that physicality, which you love to see. Averaging 16 minutes and 49 seconds of time on ice. Been a staple on that shutdown third line for the Blackhawks here for a while. Has a 48.5 Corsi for percentage as well, which is second on the Blackhawks. And I think that's just a testament to how well he plays defensively, because as I just mentioned, he's used a lot in defensive-minded situations, but still has the second best 5-on-5 Corsi for percentage for the Blackhawks. Shout out to Nick Foligno for leading by example out there on the ice. Next, we got his line mate, not tonight, but for a majority of the last month or so, Jason Dickinson. He's played in all 32 games for the Blackhawks, has 6 goals and 5 assists for 11 points. All 6 of those goals, though, have come at even strength. That's actually third among all Blackhawks skaters. And how about this? The certified goal scorer, he hasn't left. He's shooting 20% this year. Jason Dickinson only has 30 shots on goal, though. Jason, man, you're still sniping them home. You got that confidence. You're a certified goal scorer in this league, baby. You got to get more shots off on net. I think he shot 19.7% last year when he potted 20 goals. Even scoring at a higher rate this year, he's just got to rifle them off on net a little bit more frequently. Part of that, I'm sure, is, again, him starting a lot in the defensive zone. But with that shooting percentage, we might have to give Jason Dickinson some looks at the right dot or something on the second power play unit. Averaging 15 minutes and 44 seconds of time on ice. Only won 44.6% of his faceoffs this year, which has kind of been a killer for the Blackhawks. Forgot to mention that for Nick Foligno. Has won 51.7% of his draws. Despite being a winger, when he plays with Connor Bedard, he's the one who's taking a lot of the draws. He's actually been the best faceoff man on the Blackhawks this year, despite not being a true center iceman. Dickinson has taken a little bit of a step back in that department, again, below 45% this year, which, I'm sure Connor Bedard being so low, Lukas Reichel being so low, Frank Nazar struggling in that area doesn't help and is a huge reason why the Blackhawks are second last in the NHL at the faceoff dot this year, but their most reliable guy and Jason Dickinson being 44.6% certainly doesn't help either. Does have a 41.5 Corsi for percentage, though, which I think is pretty solid, again, considering the role that he plays, and I think makes the 48.5 Corsi for percentage that Nick Foligno has even more impressive. Next, we got Craig Smith, who's currently out due to a back injury. I think this is his fourth consecutive game that he's going to miss here tonight, but played in 26 of the opening 32 games this year. 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points out of Craig Smith, which quite honestly, for a guy who's played down on the fourth line the entire year, I've been really impressed with Craig Smith, and especially the speed. I didn't think at his age he was still going to have those types of wheels. He's not like an elite skater or anything, but for a guy who's 35 and up, he moves around really well, and I think that's why he and Lukas Reichel have meshed really well, in particular on that line. But I got to give Craig Smith credit too, because I think he meshes really well with Pat Maroon, meshes better with Pat Maroon than Lukas Reichel does, because Craig Smith is also a real savvy veteran with his board play too. 5 of his 6 goals have come at the even strength variety, which has been really impressive. Shooting 11.5%, and how about this? Craig Smith has 52 shots on goal this year. That's 4th among all Blackhawks forwards. So being aggressive, despite only having 11 minutes and 47 seconds of average time on ice this year, 52 shots on net out of Craig Smith. Real good stuff. 2 shots on goal per game out of him, along with a 45.2 Corsi for percentage. Next, we go to 2020 17th overall pick, Lukas Reichel, who I still think is being placed in an unideal role for him. And if I was Lukas Reichel, I'd be a little bit frustrated. But as I mentioned a couple of days ago, I do think if you look at things from afar and from Kyle Davidson's perspective, and looking at all the forwards the Blackhawks have accumulated, I know they're going to add another one with their highest draft pick in the 2025 NHL draft, but Lukas Reichel might not necessarily be a top 6 guy down the road for this Blackhawks squad. So maybe that's part of Kyle Davidson and this coaching staff using him as a 4th line center. They want him to be a little bit more gritty and maybe be a 3rd line, 2-way type of player down the road. I don't know how happy that's making Lukas Reichel, though. Played in 28 of the 32 games this year, 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points. All 3 goals have come at even strength. Doesn't really have much of a role on the power play, which I think is a joke considering the way that he can skate and enter the offensive zone. Is only shooting 7.7% though, 39 shots on the year. Would like to see that number be a little bit higher for Reichel, but again, when he's only playing 22 minutes and 22 seconds of time on ice on average, it's kind of hard to gripe him in particular about that. And another reason why I would be frustrated if I was Lukas Reichel, because I don't think he's a center iceman, and we've gone through this experiment the last couple of years, and he's never really played his best hockey at the center ice position. And also, the Blackhawks are struggling at the dot because he's playing the center ice position. He's won only 35.4% of his faceoffs this year. 43.0 Corsi for percentage is actually low among Blackhawks forwards, but again, I just don't think it's the perfect situation for Lukas Reichel's style of play, but maybe it does work best for his development and for this team long term. Next, we got Ilya Mikheyev, who's really making an impact here recently, Blackhawks fans. He's only got 9 goals. He's only got 9 points, in 30 games this season, but 6 of those 9 points have come in the last 11 games. Now has goals in back-to-back games, 2-point third period to help the Blackhawks storm back against the Caps. 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points for Mikheyev in 30 games this year. 3 of his 4 goals have come at the even strength variety. He also has the lone shorthanded goal for the Blackhawks this year. And how about this out of Ilya Mikheyev? He's a +2 on the season. And I know plus minus isn't an indicator of how well someone is playing, but for a guy who mostly plays in defensive situations, also averaging 14 minutes and 38 seconds of time on ice. So a pretty sizable third line type of role. Not the biggest role in the world, don't get me wrong, but he's playing about 15 minutes per game. Ilya Mikheyev is +2 on the season. Best among all Blackhawks skaters. I thought that was really impressive. Shooting 8.9%, but not really known for his offensive side of things at this point in time, or really the goal scoring. He's kind of like a mini Andreas Athanasiou. He's got good wheels, just doesn't really have the hands to follow along with it. 45 shots on net, though, out of Mikheyev. I like that he's being assertive with the opportunity to have pucks on net when it's on his stick. Also has a 45.6 Corsi for percentage, basically the same as Jason Dickinson. They've played a lot together this year, again, in that shutdown role. Next, we move to Philipp Kurashev, who is going to be healthy scratch for a second consecutive game here tonight against the Seattle Kraken. Played in 28 of the opening 32 contests this year, and only has 3 goals and 2 assists for 5 points. Only 2 even strength goals in 28 games, which is the same number that Teuvo Teravainen has, to be fair, but not contributing on the power play, not contributing as a playmaker, is shooting 9.7%, but only has 31 shots on goal in 28 games, despite averaging 15 minutes and 27 seconds of time on ice and getting a lot of time. Probably half of those 28 games have been with Connor Bedard on the top line, so not really aggressive shooting the puck, not making much happen in the playmaking abilities, not driving possession or opportunities for his line. That's left Philipp Kurashev in a real tough spot here. And how about this, Blackhawks fans? This is another number that indicates how poorly Philipp Kurashev has been. Again, plus minus isn't the true indicator of how well or how poor you've been playing. But when Philipp Kurashev is a -27 through 28 games, that's not a typo. That is not a typo, Blackhawks fans. Philipp Kurashev is a -27 in 28 games. Absolutely abysmal. And I accidentally, now I forgot to do this. Forgot to put down how many goals for at even strength each player's been on the ice for compares to goals against. But with Philipp Kurashev being a -27, I'm sure that number is not looking real good. You just can't play him when he's a defensive liability like he is and providing nothing offensively. I will give him some credit for winning 48.3% of his faceoffs while not being a true center iceman. That's kind of the only thing he's done well this season, though, and also has a team worst 42.4 Corsi for percentage at even strength. Last forward I got to get to is the big rig, Pat Maroon, number 77. Keep forgetting that I have a Kirby Doc jersey, and I really want to go duct tape, Sharpie marker, Pat Maroon over that bad boy. Maroon's played in 29 of the 32 games this year, only found the back of the net once, but has nicely chipped in for 7 assists, giving him 8 points on the year. Only 29 shots in 29 games, but not a big role. 11 minutes and 57 seconds. Second lowest among all Blackhawks forwards in average time on ice. But his board play and the way that he knows how to use his frame and his size to his advantage, and the way that they can keep cycles going in the offensive zone, like that might be the line that's been the best cyclers of the 4 forward lines for the Blackhawks this year. It's been a lot of fun to have Pat Maroon on this team, and I'm sure he's been a huge jolt of energy and lightheartedness on the bench and in the locker room as well. And hey, has a 46.6 Corsi for percentage. I know all Blackhawks forwards are below 50%, but 46.6 is a little bit better than what I envisioned it being for Pat Maroon. But there is a breakdown on all Blackhawks forwards and their analytics through the opening 32 games of the season. So nice to have a conversation about Teuvo Teravainen, Taylor Hall, and Tyler Bertuzzi, and not talk about how they've been killing this Blackhawks offense. They've all started to pick it up here as of late, and not a surprise that that's happened when Anders Sorensen has now switched up styles, because it was really clear they weren't going to be able to find success, and there was no real upside to Luke Richardson's offensive strategy. Now that there's been a change, now that there's a new style, I'm quite honestly excited to see how things are going to go for all of these guys and the Blackhawks offense as a whole for the remainder of the regular season. But don't go anywhere, Blackhawks fans, because coming up in just a moment during segment 2, I'll go over Alex Vlasic and the Blackhawks defenseman. Real quick, though, I do got to talk to you all about Built Rewards, which is a new sponsor here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? Well, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. And that's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. It's really as simple as that. And you can use these points towards a dream vacation or toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. So what are you waiting for? Go and earn points right now by simply paying rent when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL. And make sure to use that URL so they know we sent you, and you can start earning points today with Built Rewards. Also got to talk to you all about Select Quote, the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance today. They can help you find the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. And in sports, winning is everything. That's why you always need a good strategy to keep you moving towards the goalposts. Winning strategies for life are just as important, and that's why on my team, I have life insurance through Select Quote to protect my legacy and my family's financial future. So go and get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. Again, that's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you all for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. For your second listen, got to go and check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast so that you can become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. And you can find the link to Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Segment 2, getting into the Blackhawks defensemen here. And one thing I do want to preface, there's only 5 of them that I'm going to break down. Louis Crevier has only played in 5 NHL games this year. It's not really enough of a sample size to tell us anything. Seth Jones has only played in 17 games this season, and his numbers haven't changed since I broke them down in Deep Dive 2.0, so doesn't really make sense to go diving into his numbers on today's show. Kevin Korchinski, who's up in the NHL right now, doesn't have enough of a sample size, and neither does Alec Martinez, who continues to be banged up here through the first half of the regular season. So quite honestly, the defensemen are pretty cut and dry here. It's only Alex Vlasic, Connor Murphy, TJ Brody, Nolan Allen, and Wyatt Kaiser who I'm going to get into. But I'll tell you what, Blackhawks fans, we got to start with none other than Alex Vlasic, emerging as the number 1 defenseman here in Chicago. And I'm really curious to see what happens when Seth Jones comes back, Blackhawks fans. Because listen, Seth Jones is the best offensive-minded defenseman on the Blackhawks. He's the best rover. He's the best skater. He has the best offensive abilities. But Alex Vlasic is starting to come for that number 1 job, man. And he is easily the most reliable defender in the defensive zone that we have for the Blackhawks right here, right now. I'm curious, are the Blackhawks, are they going to load up Seth and Alex to kind of allow Seth to play to his offensive strengths while Alex can lean on the defensive side of things? Or are they going to try to have 2 legitimate top pairing defensemen on 2 separate pairings? Really curious to see what's going to happen there. But Alex Vlasic just continues to take steps and get better and better and better in front of our eyes. And I absolutely love it. And I actually made a post yesterday because just all these guys from the 2019 NHL draft, I of course broke down a potential Capo Caco trade here with the Blackhawks. Just a couple of hours after that happens, he winds up getting dealt to the Seattle Kraken, who are going to be playing here this evening. But so many players from the 2019 NHL draft have been traded. Kirby Dach, Bowen Byram, Alex Newhook. Like there's so many guys. Capo Caco, of course, as well. Like so many guys changing scenery, and so many guys from that draft class also reportedly to be on the trade block as well. But I thought it was a good time to go and look back at all the defensemen that went before Alex Vlasic in the 2019 NHL draft. And it is hilarious. Quite honestly, hilarious. 14th defenseman off the board was Alex Vlasic, going 43rd overall. I was ecstatic. I'm going to have to go and do some deep digging when I first became the host of the show. I was fired up about Alex Vlasic getting drafted. But you can make a case that he's arguably the best defenseman from that draft class, despite being the 14th D-man off the board and going 43rd overall. I think the only real guy you could put ahead of him, in my opinion, is Mo Seider, who was, by the way, off the radar. Everyone thought Steve Yzerman was bonkers with that pick at the time. Mo Seider is probably the best defenseman from that draft class. Other ones kind of in the race to me, along with Vlasic, Bowen Byram went number 4, of course, to the Colorado Avalanche, had some concussion issues, but his skating, his offensive upside, he still hasn't reached it, and I think if he gets healthy, he's still capable of finding his game. I don't know if I'd rather have Bowen Byram, though, because of those injury issues than Alex Vlasic. I think the other two that are kind of in the conversation are Thomas Harley and Cam York, I think would be the ones that are right there to me. But Alex Vlasic certainly making a case for one of the best, or even the best defenseman from that draft class, right at the top there, in my opinion, with Mo Seider. But getting into his numbers, sorry for blabbling Blackhawks fans. Played in all 32 games here. Babbling, not blabbling. I don't know why I said that. 2 goals, 14 assists, 16 points for Alex Vlasic on the year. Those 14 assists, good for second among all Blackhawks skaters, and those 16 points are good for 4th on the team as well. And oh yeah, by the way, he's already tied his previous career high that he posted in, I think, 78 games last year for the Blackhawks. So the offensive development has been on display. It has been excellent. The skating ability, the confidence, the puck movement, and also just his play in the offensive zone. It's all better than I envisioned. And again, he's still only 23 years old and has some room to continue to grow. Also has 8 power play assists on the year, which is second on the Blackhawks. So with Seth Jones out, Blackhawks power play really hasn't skipped a beat because Alex Vlasic has continued to wheel, is only shooting 4.1%. I mean, that's pretty average for a defenseman. 49 shots in 32 games. That is the one area where I would like to continue to see him make strides. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7". Just go and blast that bad boy, baby. 23 minutes and 45 seconds of time on ice in the top 20 in the NHL. That number has grown, obviously, with Seth Jones out, but that's 2 minutes higher than what Alex Vlasic was already at last year, averaging 21 minutes and 29 seconds last season. He's nearly up to 24 minutes this year, and he doesn't look out of place doing it. Also has 68 block shots, second on the Blackhawks, 23 takeaways, first on the Blackhawks. I know he has a 43.6 Corsi for percentage, but starts a lot in defensive zones, plays in mostly defensive-minded situations at even strength. -9 plus-minus rating, but not all that surprising again, considering this role that he plays in, nearly being out there on the ice for half the game. Not all that surprising. Alex Vlasic has been the best defenseman for the Blackhawks this year, and it's not even close. The guy who's probably been the second best defenseman for the Blackhawks this year, though, has been Connor Murphy, and that's been lovely to see, Blackhawks fans, because the last few years, Murph's been injury-prone. Even when he has been healthy, there hasn't been a lot of consistency defensively. This year, I think he's been spectacular, and he's chipping in like he never has on the offensive side of things. Murph's played in all 32 games. He only has 1 goal, which actually came as the empty netter a couple of days ago, but does have 11 assists, which is 4th among all Blackhawks skaters. No, not 4th among Blackhawks defensemen, 4th on the team with 11 assists this year, 12 points, is also good for 8th on the squad. And oh yeah, he's only 7 points shy of tying his career best 19 points that he achieved a couple of years ago with the Blackhawks. He's on pace to blow that number out of the water. What's also impressive, Connor Murphy is a +1. One of 2 players along with Ilya Mikheyev who has a positive plus-minus rating. I think that's pretty incredible, again, for being a defensive-minded guy. Really, really, really solid stuff out of Connor Murphy. Also was chipped in with 11 even-strength assists, which is first among all Blackhawks skaters. That's incredible. The goal scoring, obviously, he's never really been known for that and never will be. But I do like that he has 36 shots on goal in 32 games played. Again, never going to be his forte, but averaging 20 minutes and 42 seconds. First time in a couple of years he's been up over 20 minutes. Nice to see that he's at least utilizing that and not only contributing with his assists, but he's at least getting more shots on goal from the point than he normally does as a defensive-minded defenseman. Murphy's also first with 77 blocks this year, third with 53 hits, and he's first with a 92.0 on ice save percentage. And I don't think that number's there because of happenstance. It's because Connor Murphy has been in the right spots in the defensive zone, not really out there for a ton of high danger opportunities against, and allows his goaltenders to see the puck and make those saves. So really, really solid stuff out of Connor Murphy, man. He's been super impressive this year. Next up, we go to a guy who has not been super impressive this year, and TJ Brodie. Played in 29 of the 32 games. If it was up to me, he'd be healthy scratched right now. Even though he has chipped in more offensively as of late, he's now up to 2 goals and 6 assists for 8 points on the season and had a big game-time goal against the Capitals last time out for the Blackhawks. He just remains such a defensive liability. And in a lineup that also has, on a blue line that also has Nolan Allen, who's a rookie, Wyatt Kaiser, who could technically be listed as a rookie, Kevin Korchinski, not a rookie, but 19 years old, one of the youngest defensemen in the NHL. Louis Crevier doesn't have, I can't really count Louis Crevier, but TJ Brodie is the biggest liability on the defensive side of things for the Blackhawks. -10 plus-minus rating, worst among all Blackhawks defensemen. He's only got 14 shots on goal for the entire year, despite averaging 15 minutes and 54 seconds of time on ice. He's actually shooting 14.3% because 2 of his 14 shots on goal have found the back of the net, but doesn't really contribute a whole lot in the offensive zone. Not as good as he used to be at his bread and butter, and he signed on for $3.75 million until the end of next year. 38 blocks, which, Murphy's got 77. Alex Vlasic has 68. TJ Brodie has 38. Thanks. 45.7 Corsi 4 percentage is all right, but I don't know, man. I hate to be that guy. I just don't really have many good things to say about TJ Brodie. Next, we got Nolan Allen, who I think is a rookie already, looks better than TJ Brodie. He's played in 25 games this year, no goals, still looking for that first NHL tally, but has chipped in for 5 assists, giving him 5 points. Only 8 shots on goal, though, for Nolan Allen in 25 games. He's a defensive-minded defenseman. He's never going to be known for his offense, but 8 shots, I thought TJ Brodie's 14 shots were laughable. Nolan Allen has 8. But at least he's capable in the defensive side of things, right? Averaging 14 minutes and 29 seconds of time on ice, lowest among all Blackhawks defensemen here. Has chipped in for 23 block shots, has 27 hits as well. What is interesting, though, is a 91.8 on-ice save percentage. That's second among all Blackhawks defensemen, so really solid stuff there out of Nolan Allen. Also was only -3 on the year, so it's not like he's been a huge no-no at even strength. He's just kind of surviving out there, which isn't a terrible thing to do for a 20-year-old kid in his first NHL stint. I am surprised, though, that Wyatt Kaiser, the guy who I'm about to get to here in a second, is being healthy scratched over Nolan Allen and TJ Brodie. Wyatt Kaiser, I know the offensive numbers, like Nolan Allen has 5 times the assists that Wyatt Kaiser does. I'm still baffled, actually, that Kaiser only has 1 assist through 28 games because he's the much more involved player in the offensive zone and in transition, and definitely has the higher offensive ceiling and offensive IQ out of Allen and Brodie, right? Like, for him to have much fewer points than those guys is a little bit odd. Kaiser also has 32 shots on goal. He's got more than TJ Brodie and Nolan Allen combined. So yeah, real weird that he's only got 1 point of production this year, but he's chipped in for 54 blocks. He's also not a big guy, but has added 33 hits, -4 on the season, which has been pretty solid in a, the 91.8 on-ice save percentage that I said for Nolan Allen is actually for Wyatt Kaiser. He's got the second best on-ice save percentage on the Blackhawks. And again, I don't think that's by random. I think that's because Wyatt Kaiser has been in a lot of good positions defensively. I'll talk more about my opinion on his situation right here, right now during segment 3, but honestly, these defensive numbers are pretty good out of Wyatt Kaiser. He's 4th on the Blackhawks in Corsi 4 percentage at 41.8%. As I just referenced, 2nd in on-ice save percentage, only a -4, has chipped in with 54 blocks and 33 hits, has 32 shots on goal, right? I'm a little bit confused how he only has 1 point of production this year. He honestly might be the most snake-bitten player on the Chicago Blackhawks. I'd take Kaiser's season over Allen's and Brodie's despite the lack of production, but there is a deep dive into 5 of the 10 seemingly defensemen that have played for the Chicago Blackhawks so far this season. That takes care of my Deep Dive 3.0 on the Chicago Blackhawks. I promise when I go into Deep Dive 4.0, I will have the goals for to goals against at even strength. It will be a beefy mid-season deep dive into the Chicago Blackhawks. But I hope you all enjoyed Deep Dive 3.0, but the show's still not over. Coming up in just a moment, I do got to get into a quick preview of tonight's matchup with the Kraken and Seth Jones and Petr Mrazek continuing to get healthier. First, though, I do got to talk to you all about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is now the easiest and most exciting way for you to play daily fantasy sports, because all you got to do is simply pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Do you think Connor Bedard is going to get more than 0.5 goals tonight against the Seattle Kraken? Or how about the total to go over 5.5? You can now cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game with PrizePicks. And one thing that I really do enjoy about PrizePicks is it's the only real daily fantasy platform that has an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players were to get injured. So make sure to go download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps when you download the PrizePicks app to get $50 when you put $5 down. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, segment 3. I know this episode is getting a little bit long already, but I do want to go over a quick preview of the Blackhawks matchup tonight against the Seattle Kraken because the Blackhawks are looking to do something they haven't done since February of 2023. That's right. They have not won 3 consecutive games in nearly 2 full seasons, but they'll have an opportunity to do that here tonight on home ice as they'll wrap up their 3-game homestand with a battle against the Seattle Kraken. But before I get into the Blackhawks and the Kraken's projected lineup, I did want to be sure to mention Petr Mrazek has been activated off of injured reserve, which is awesome news for us Blackhawks fans. Not going to get the nod in between the pipes here, though, tonight. It is going to be Arvid Soderblom, but big-time return for Petr Mrazek. He's been out since December 7th, missed the past 5 games due to a right groin injury. Had to rely on Arvid Soderblom heavily. Drew Commesso, of course, got his first NHL start in New Jersey. Blackhawks starting to get a little bit healthier in goal, though. Hopefully, Laurent Brossoit is on his way. Would love to see him sooner rather than later, but don't expect it to be happening anytime earlier than mid to late January. But would just be nice as a whole for this Blackhawks organization to get healthy in net, because finally Drew Commesso has been returned to the Rockford Ice Hogs, and I think him going up and down and not being a consistent spot has led to his numbers not being very good during his sophomore campaign with the Rockford Ice Hogs. But I was really impressed with Drew Comesso's play in his first NHL start against the New Jersey Devils. Lots of friends and family there, as he's a Massachusetts boy out on the East Coast in attendance. Unfortunately, that was the only start we got to see of Commesso, but quite honestly, I hope not to see him again for the rest of the regular season, because that means he's remained in Rockford, he's been developing, and the Blackhawks NHL group in goal has been able to stay healthy. But sounds like Petr Mrazek is going to get the start in goal when the Blackhawks take on the Calgary Flames in Calgary on Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Time puck drop, by the way. Also want to mention that Seth Jones seems to be nearing his return as well. He's been skating for about the last week or so. Not exactly sure if he's going to be able to go on Saturday in Calgary as well, but sounds like that could happen, and if not then, possibly Monday in Minnesota, the final game for the Blackhawks before the Christmas break when they take on the divisional rival Wild. It's been over a month since we've seen Seth Jones. He hasn't played since November 14th in Seattle, fittingly enough, so slated to miss about a month. Only played in 17 of the opening 32 games this year, but I'll tell you what, getting Petr Mrazek healthy, getting Seth Jones healthy, hopefully Alec Martinez will be following suit, Laurent Brossoit down the road as well. The Blackhawks having this style of play under Andrew Sorensen, I'm a little intrigued about how they're going to look once they get fully healthy. Knock on wood, hopefully that will be the case. But diving into the Blackhawks projected lineup here tonight, sounds like it's going to be the same as it was last time out against the Capitals, meaning Philip Kurashev, who I rightfully so believe should be scratched here, as just hasn't been good enough offensively or defensively for this team. He's going to be healthy scratched once again. So will Wyatt Kaiser. Don't like that whatsoever. Don't agree with it whatsoever. Nick Foligno, Connor Bedard, Ryan Donato look to be the top line. Taylor Hall, Frank Nazar, and Tyler Bertuzzi as the second line. Would love to see Frank Nazar wind up on the stat sheet here this evening. Teuvo Teravainen, who's got his groove going right now, looks like he is going to stay on the third line at this moment with Jason Dickinson and Ilya Mikheyev. And then Pat Maroon, Lukas Reichel, and Joey Anderson rounding things out. As I mentioned, Craig Smith still out with a back injury. Defensively, though, for the Blackhawks, look, I know they've won their last 2 games. Kaiser's been out for both of them. I'd be ticked off, though, if I was Wyatt Kaiser. Alex Vlasic is playing with Louis Crevier on the top pairing. Awesome. Louis Crevier had a sweet hit on Tom Wilson in the final minute of that game. He's not a top pairing defenseman. He can't play with Alex Vlasic. He can't play those types of minutes. And I'll give Louis Crevier credit for being a 7th-round pick, right? A guy at his size, he's developed a lot better than I ever thought. But I don't think he's going to be an NHL defenseman. And to play him over Wyatt Kaiser really, really ticks me off. And I'm sure it ticks off Wyatt Kaiser as well. Nolan Allen, Connor Murphy is the second pairing. Kevin Korchinski and TJ Brody is the third. Having TJ Brody and Louis Crevier in this lineup over Wyatt Kaiser, I just do not agree with whatsoever. But that looks like it's going to be the blue line the Blackhawks roll with. As I mentioned, Arvid Soderblom, the man that's going to get the start here this evening. Seattle 15-16-2 through 33 games so far this year, 4-5-1 over their past 10. But a little bit tough for them, but I referenced they did just pick up Capo Caco, so looking to get their forward group going a little bit more here. As far as their lines and pairings, to wrap things up, Jared McCann, Matty Beniers, Capo Caco skating on the top pairing tonight. Jaden Schwartz, Yanni Gord, and Brandon Tanev on the second line. Eli Tolvanen, Shane Wright, and Oliver Bjorkstrand, the Blackhawks killer, on the third line. And then Ty Cartier, Chandler Stevenson getting paid a lot of money to center that fourth line, along with Andrei Burakovsky. On the back end, Vince Dunn and Adam Larson. Jamie Alexiak, I can't believe he's still playing this good of hockey at his age. I thought he was done like 5 years ago. On the second pairing with Brandon Montour, and then Riker Evans and Josh Mahura expected to round things out. Not confirmed as of the time of this recording. Joey Decord expected to be the one in goal. Should point out that the Kraken won the first meeting 3-1 in Seattle in that game in which Seth Jones blocked a shot off his right foot and unfortunately landed on IR. That's going to wrap up today's mega episode of Locked On Blackhawks. I know we ran a little bit late there, but thank you to everyone who stuck with me up until the very end. Make sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free if you haven't done so already, and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Quite honestly, though, if you're sticking with me up until this point of the episode, I'm sure you've probably done that already. You can find me on X at Jack Bushman 2. Go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account, though, at Talkin' Hockey, for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, have a great rest of your nights. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.